after having tied up one of your bandits who you all kept with you, you are now moving back into Flynn's watch. And for where we are going to go here, we can hop back into Flynn. You're basically sitting up. There's no reason for you to necessarily let this person sleep or to question them. It's kind of up to you what you do on this watch. But what are you doing? Are you kind of letting the night go on to where you're going to just watch? Do you want to question this person, which might distract you from watching your surroundings? Like, what kind of things is Flynn thinking as the others kind of start to turn in and prepare to sleep?
Um, well, I guess Flynn will probably mostly just uh, contemplate the night. Um, what happened, what he could have done differently. I suppose that might probably would have been his first kill since this is his first time sort of out on it. Yeah, I don't know. Other than that, yeah, I doubt he'd be willing to really talk to the prisoner.
Do you think your thoughts are distracting you from the world at large?
No, I'll take the still making sure to keep watch.
As the first hour kind of goes by, you are going to um, hear kind of the traditional sounds of the road here. There might be some of the first efforts of some people who wake a little bit earlier as the road starts to actually come alive with people actively moving about. But in general, everything seems pretty normal, seems pretty calm. The wind's kind of flowing through the flowers. There's the morning dew starting to collect where you bundle yourself a little bit tighter in your traveling clothes. But overall, everything seems pretty normal. Everything kind of checks out, and as the night continues on, you are going to um, kind of just keep your watch and process through. When you are ready, let me get one more perception check here. Technically, I want two rolls every single time I call for a perception, by the way. So, like, yeah, those two were just the first one.
Uh,
Second watch is going to continue by pretty similarly, where things are just kind of coming awake. You're going to start to see the first signs of dawn rising above the actual horizon. Let's see, you all are on the west coast. Yeah, so you're kind of watching it over the mountains that are off in view, and you can kind of see some of the signs of the actual sword mountains that create the barrier that kind of Phandalin sits on the northwestern side of. And you can see some of these mountains off in where Tribor is close enough that you probably have heard of it from within Neverwinter. For all of you, I think, especially with ties to Leyland for Candor, Tribor would be a little bit more known as well. It is one of the settlements that kind of approaches this area between Phandalin, Leyland, and Neverwinter on kind of this northern coast. It's one of the kind of human stopovers between some of the larger cities of the other races coming out of like Silvery Moon, as well as some of the dwarven strongholds of the north. But as you're kind of watching this sunset, or the sunrise, getting close to when everybody is all set and kind of prepared to pick up with your days, what kind of things are crossing through Flynn's mind?
um, not sure right now, I guess. Um, Yeah, sorry.
Well, you
You
said
said
among things you were contemplating what it meant to have taken your first life. How's this kind of sitting with Flynn as they're waking up to this kind of first morning as somebody who's taken things to such an extreme?
Well, was in self-defense, and this was the life he knew he was getting into when he signed up for the job. So I suppose other than saying a prayer, he tried to move on with it.
So, as you all start to wake up for the morning, what is everyone's intentions with your morning breaking of the fast? You can start to have some rations, sit around the last vestiges of any heat coming from any of these fires. What are you all thinking as you are picking up with your morning?
I'm thinking that it's a beautiful sunrise, um, but I'm slightly distracted by the fact that we still have a prisoner and making or just suspecting or trying to think that he's tied up properly and that there's going to be no mischief from him, and wish that I didn't have that inconvenience of spoiling the sunrise, which I'm enjoying.
So you are walking over to check on the prisoner.
Yes, I'll check on the prisoner.
Roll a perception check. As you head over to the prisoner, you can kind of see that there's definitely a lot of signs of like moving and kind of like scraping against the grass and upturned earth. You can see that there's a little bit more of a struggle here than just from the fight the evening before. When you get behind and start to look at their actual ropes, all of the ropes are still present on this person. None of them are tied any longer. This person has been sitting here untied for however long since they got out of their ropes, and they're still here. Nothing to see here, friend. Just your prisoner.
So I'll ask him, what's your story then? Why aren't why are you just sitting there when you could have escaped?
You've already shown yourselves to be killers. I made my way, and I could have, but I was hoping we might find a bit of goodwill, or a bit of goodwill returned. I didn't do nothing to you. I did what I can to stop what we had going on last night. I was just hoping for maybe a little leniency today.
I'd like to tie him back up because I just don't trust him.
Now, y'all still have all the weapons. You still hold all the cards. Isn't anybody here willing to hear a little bit of reason?
So I think like as Candor was waking up, you'll see he was like, kind of a little stiff from sleeping on the wagon, but taking like a lot of time to like, meticulously like cleaning, some of like the remaining flecks of blood off his rapier and like, um, just kind of like straighten out some of the wrinkles on his shirt and things like that. But seeing, eventually like kind of looking up, seeing Einar over talking with the prisoner, he'll kind of amble over. Um, and I guess at that point, he would notice that the man doesn't seem to be tied up anymore. And he'll kind of look, kind of shoot like almost like a questioning glance to Einar, kind of like, you know, almost like, did you not speaking it out loud, but like, did you untie him? Like he's just kind of curious about what's going on, but hasn't said anything yet.
So he sees you kind of approaching as that conversation's already happening, kind of alluding to the same idea. Like, he's not actually really hiding once it's discovered, and you watch as Flynn. Did I say that right? No, this is Einar retying him. You kind of see as he's like holding up his hands, kind of just showing the same thing. And there's just like a little look on his eyes, almost like puppy dog eyes as he looks to you and has no thoughts to perhaps a amicable parting of ways. You all have the light of the sun behind you. I can head on my way to the north. You all can head on your way to the south.
Well, he did cause us a bit of inconvenience last night. Supposing we were considering letting you go, you make it worth our while.
Now, my inconvenience ended the moment you woke up. I didn't cause y'all any inconvenience after a spell. But what would you have of me? I don't have much to offer.
Information, perhaps? You come from the south. We're headed that way. Anything of interest on the road? Anything we should keep an eye out for that may be able to share?
Roll a persuasion. The high road is as dangerous as any other place. You seem keen enough to understand that. My people were simple. We take what we can. And kind of looking back over to Einar, we don't harm when we can avoid it. Sometimes it goes too far. And looking back towards Candor, we don't mean to hurt anyone. We take what's extra. That's the price of the highway. And then, with kind of a squint eye, he'll look back over to you and. But there are more dangerous places in the wilds.
I'm just going to grab him by the scruff of the neck and say, you don't mean to harm us when we're alive, but you'll wait till we're fast asleep before killing us in our sleep. So, screw you.
Nobody attacked you in your sleep, friend. We had already taken plenty of things from you before this one woke up.
I'll just spit at the floor next to him as though his response doesn't warrant me responding back.
No doubt, as you say, there's more dangerous places. Tell me your little band's wanderings. Ever take you on the Tribor off the high road?
Oh, we've made special calls to stay close enough to the guards who travel between the working Leyland and Neverwinter. There's bigger, more dangerous things when you start to head off into that wilderness. Even we didn't have any desire to tumble with. And then kind of like smirking over towards Flynn. Sometimes there are things that you have to kill. And there's not necessarily much money to make up for it in the end. So kind of like meekly like lift his wrists, kind of showing the ropes towards you. and just kind of like with this very like given in kind of eyes to him, showing like essentially like a dominated visage. So what do you say? Can we find a way to part on more friendly terms?
If we let you go, well, what will you do? Will you go back to your old life of robbing people?
I won't ever rob you.
Yes, but if you harm other people, then it'll be my fault for letting you go.
That's there seems to have the high thoughts of being someone who can affect other people. I'm just a person just trying to find a way through this life. Don't we all have our own struggles?
Well, there's honest ways to work and live. Uh, from I know for a fact that there are job openings on the docks now, some recent vacancies up in Neverwinter.
Ah, yes, living in the slums, isn't that just the touch of beautiful days? Let's just say Neverwinter doesn't have a home for me. Free me? And he's just gonna start like showing those the same like his wrists and his palms, just trying to get any of you to take a dagger to those ropes.
So Kander he'll look towards Einar, he'll look towards Flynn, and kind of just give like a little shrug and kind of might be more trouble than it's worth bringing them with us.
I'll just shake my head um, and say, "The decision is yours. This is nothing to do with me." And then I'll just turn my back and walk off.
And what say you, Flynn?
Well, not sure. I mean, if the patrolmen will just what the patrolmen will do to him. I mean, he certainly deserves to be punished, but if they just summary execute him like he implies, then maybe some mercy. I don't know. Just trying to figure out least harm in my head here and coming up with a catch-22. We let him go, he might hurt people. We hand him over. Can we be sure justice will be done? I don't know. What do you think we should do with him?
So Kander will kind of stand there, kind of considering it for a moment. Finally, he'll take out one of the daggers. He'll kind of move over towards the captive. He'll move the dagger towards the ropes, and then pause and kind of look. And this might be a bad idea, but I think I'm going to let you go. But if we see you again, I'm not going to be so merciful. And if I hear anything about you hurting anyone on this high road, and I happen to come across you again, same story. Agreed?
So it kind of bow his head a little bit to you, and I think in a little whisper, you'll just hear, I think in Thieves' Cant, where I don't normally say Thieves' Cant is going to be like a verbal language. To me, it's much more symbolic. So perhaps he actually gets like a finger to your wrist as you're kind of like going towards like cutting the strings. But let's say he kind of basically shares a thought in Thieves' Cant, whether it's just like rubbing a little symbol into your wrist or kind of just voicing the almost it's kind of like how kanji, like the script for like Japanese, is like thoughts more than actual words. Like it's a little bit different, almost like German is like very complex words are like very complex thoughts are singular words. That's kind of where like Thieves' Cant kind of sits. I like the old hobo style of like this is a safe place. These people give food, and they're very simple symbols. So he's just going to kind of like almost just like voice this symbol to you of um, effectively kind of so we'll never see each other again, and that'll be a good life. But it's kind of like the idea of like the symbol for nothing to see and safety. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like just passing along this thought in just a moment where if we never see each other again, that'll be the safest ending.
Yeah, so Candor will kind of give like a very small kind of nod of just to like indicate he understands the meaning, and then he will go and move to slice the ropes open.
Make a performance at advantage. Yeah, so I would say the reaction from most people are not going to see like you flinch in the least bit, pretty much giving no signs that either of you kind of had that interaction with the actual like thieves camp there. Like you don't flinch at all when it happens. He goes pretty kind of seamlessly. But as you do cut him free and those lines kind of go free, he's just going to. I think again he'll kind of bow low and with a moment, uh, kind of look to you and pass then on. If you ever find yourself having gone so far, and I think he's going to draw just like a little kind of like gridded out map. And he'll kind of just draw out like this like four house pattern and show this area, and he'll just kind of point to it, and he's just going to kind of like mention like effectively something to like this part of this structure is it's fake. You can like kind of crush through it just like talcum powder. It's not cement like or it's not like a stone like the rest of the structure. And he's basically going to give you a clue where he has some treasure inside of Coneyberry. Um, Effectively, what you would be looking for is you have to go through the town of Coneyberry and try to look through the ruins and try to figure out what they're talking about. But for right now, I would just say um, you can kind of like write down that you have this clue to where a treasure is in Coneyberry.
Gotcha. Okay. Does he actually do we actually have this physical map where he essentially sketches it out and then kind of puts it away?
This is like going to be sketched into the dirt kind of thing.
Ah, gotcha, gotcha. Okay.
So depending on where you guys have actual skills, this is one of the things where if somebody is like a cartographer, writing something down like that and creating your own map for it, is the kind of thing that is definitely beneficial to some of those other skills. I don't think anybody in this group is on that level, but it is one of those things for some of those more obscure skills. I try to like reward actually being a map maker.
Yeah, Candor is not he's not particularly skilled at, so he'll just try to essentially, kind of fix it in his mind. At the very least he'll remember Coneyberry and that there's something there. He might have to kind of forget exactly like the, particulars of the building. So, but he will try to remember, kind of try to commit it to memory as best he can, and then, um, kind of, give one more nod, and then, say like, well, with that, be on your way, and as you say, I hope we never meet again, and then he'll, um, kind of turn to head back to, um, meet up again with Flynn and Einar and relay kind of the, um, information that he's learned about this, uh, possible treasure hidden in Coneyberry.
So as you spin in turn, um, not really looking back for this person, he's going to kind of slowly step back and away from you. Are the other two still going ahead with this idea of releasing him? Because he still kind of has his eyes on you all, at like this moment where Cander's starting to turn to return to the group.
Um, when he's cut free, I guess I'll just say, "Mercy it is then. I hope, although perhaps I'm being naive, I hope one day you will find the right path." And I'll let him go.
I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to show that I've got a hand firmly on my short sword, um, just to show, no funny business.
So without anybody to stop this person, after a few moments kind of stepping back, they are going to turn into the grass and kind of like run off from the road. And within a few minutes, or within a few moments, should be out of sight and beyond everybody's view.
So Candor will kind of like pat Flynn on the back. Is like, I've learned we can only ever be responsible for our own actions. So try not to worry about what he might do. I told him if we see him again, where things might go more badly for him, and he did end up giving us a bit of potentially useful information. And then at that point, he'll share the stuff about Tony Berry.
That's a bit further out from Phandalin.
Yes, we'll have to hope he's hidden it well enough that it might still be waiting for us once we actually, if we ever actually get a chance to get up there. But for now, I'd say continuing on to Phandalin and getting this, getting these supplies there is our best course.
Yeah, I agree.
So back to business then.
Yes.
So you all can head back to your animals, prepare to start to head off for the day along the southern part of the high road. Probably having done, I think, probably about half of the high road on that first day's trip. You all did a little bit beyond searching out the fires where you did stop. When you continue forward, I think we had I feel like Einar was sitting on the back of the cart and Flynn and Candor were driving.
Oh, I was sitting on the back, yes.
Yeah, I think Flynn was driving and Candor was kind of just sitting up there keeping him company, but not really helping per se.
Gotcha. So is that kind of the setup here? Again, we'll have Flynn driving the animals, Candor up front, and Einar kind of between following and um, riding on the back of the wagon.
Candor will offer Einar the spot if he wants it. He doesn't mind sitting in the back for a day.
By all means, take a seat. We can swap. That's fine by me.
All right, sounds good. Candor will try to make himself as kind of as comfortable as possible, which probably isn't very comfortable, kind of sitting in the back there and kind of like in the back of his mind, he's thinking like, yeah, did I do the right thing? But then he'll kind of like only for a little bit, and then he'll just kind of try to banish it from his mind as they get started again.
So when you all head off, let me get a animal handling from Flynn. Alrighty. So at some point during this early part in the day, you all are going to be traveling, and the animals are ill at ease. It's hard to really know what's giving you problems, but you're having a struggle keeping them actually attending to the task kind of ahead. And more or less, you're going to make slow progress on at least the initial portion of your day as you kind of struggle to keep the animals together. There's definitely times where somebody's passing by and you have one of the horses trying to pull off and strain really hard towards them. The other one's just kind of going in a normal pace, and it's almost just craning the wagon at times as these horses are not working in concert. But overall, you all will eventually make it towards your lunchtime where you kind of stop for a little bit to rest the animals, take in a little bit of the actual scenery around you as you are in this great plain area with the trees of the Neverwinter woods off to your west and some of this grassland between, and then kind of like a long, slow look off towards the coast and the grasslands in that direction. Sometimes with views of the actual breaking surf, like in some of the lower areas, sometimes from higher areas, you kind of see like this drop off from the actual grasslands into just open ocean without the actual like breach between where you see the surf. It's a very nice area to travel, makes for a nice simple day, but you do have this kind of sense in mind that you had a struggle with the horses through that day. Um, and or through that early part of the day there. When you all set in for a bit of a midday break, kind of in the high sun, what sort of thoughts do you have knowing that you didn't make great time in the first half of this kind of day's travel?
Can Einar say to Flynn, I've actually I know you've been struggling this morning. I've actually got a little bit of prowess with animals. Do you want me to attempt this afternoon's journey, if you don't mind?
Uh, yeah, I suppose some help would be warranted.
Yeah, it'll give you a break um, from handling the animals.
So yeah, making it into the second part of the day, we'll have Einar taking over driving the animals. And you can roll in animal handling. So you can progress forward into this afternoon. There's a certain sense where you're kind of like looking at these beasts and struggling with them as well. Perhaps they're not well suited to being around so many who are passing like in different directions. But even then, you're kind of telling yourself we're seeing a lot less people than we saw when we were closer to Neverwinter, and they didn't act this bad then. It's just one of those things where there's certain amounts of doubts kind of going through your head of they're just struggling against everything that I do, and you kind of have senses of kind of doubting yourselves. But moving forward, you move on into kind of this late part of the day. A good chunk of the day has passed by, and you all are going to feel a certain level of exhaustion that just passes from spending a day on the road and traveling. And there's kind of this idea of do you take the time to camp and just let everybody relax? Do you want to push forward and try to make up some of the time that you've lost? What sort of thoughts do you all have when you're kind of approaching sort of like an early evening, early afternoon, or late afternoon, early evening?
So Kander, he'll kind of hop off like once we're kind of if we like pause a bit at late afternoon, he kind of like comes around, kind of like holding the small of his back a bit. He's like, the road must be bumpier than I remember. Um, but he'll kind of like look around, like kind of look up, see like the sun is like nearing setting, and um, he doesn't, he, despite the trouble they had the last evening, he doesn't seem to be in any particular rush. Doesn't seem like, I mean, the cops have been giving us so much trouble already. If we push him, so he'll suggest. This seems like a decent enough place to stop for the night. But he'll you know wait for Flynn and Einar's thoughts.
In absolute agreement there. I think it's been a difficult day with the animals, and I'm as hungry as hell.
Yeah, I guess we can get an early start tomorrow.
Gotcha. So you all can set in to start preparing your camp. You're going to continue to see some people who are still on foot, still walking north, and some walking south. Most people at this point, the vast majority of what you're seeing are still travelers coming from the south going north, but you do occasionally see signs of people who are traveling south out of Neverwinter. In general, most of these are going to be small groups of just random people and the occasional group that is actually guarded. Those tend to be a larger group where the guards themselves are a sizable number, as well as the other people who are kind of passing along. And that's kind of like the scene that you're seeing on the high road itself. When you all go to set in, do you want to camp along the high road, or are you looking to move off from the road itself and kind of find yourselves um, like a little like grassland area to camp in the grass Do you want to find a area next to some trees to camp in the trees? What sort of thoughts do you have as you start to look to prepare a camp?
So Candor will suggest maybe if we can find maybe a small copse of trees somewhere not too far off the road might be a good place we can kind of maybe we can make a nice fire, rest the oxen for a bit. But if there's nowhere within, if there's not like that kind of area within, say, you know, um, like a half a mile or so, they just like maybe then just like camp on the grassland, but maybe get at least a little bit off the road.
Gotcha. If you would like to throw a you could do survival or you could do perception. Be aware the perception's going to give you a different result than survival.
Um, yeah, he's not too familiar with like he'll just kind of look around and see if he spots anything. So probably perception.
Gotcha. Give me that roll. Yeah, so as you kind of take a look, it is not far away from where you all are kind of taking this moment for a quick breather, that you do see a small copse of trees, and it seems to be around a little lake as well, or a little spot of water at very least. So you can certainly head off to that. It seems off from the high road and kind of still visible, but more or less sheltered from much of the view, and seems like a solid spot to rest for the evening.
So Candor will kind of like point that out, and then he'll turn towards Flynn and Einar and kind of, this seem all right to you?
Yep. Yeah,
Uh,
seems good.
yep, looks perfect to me.
So, do you all have any thoughts about what you would be doing in camp prior to going to bed, or is everybody just kind of looking to shelter for the evening and take to watches?
So Candor would probably take out like oh, never mind. He doesn't actually have them. Scratch that.
My immediate thought is, are there branches on the floor of some sort? I'm thinking when we're overnight, not so much an alarm, but something that might alert us to any trespasser nearby, whether it's just a cracking branch or something like that. I'm just thinking out loud here. If so, I'll just go around getting some light, brittle branches and scattering them about the place to try and put that into effect.
Gotcha. So you're looking to scatter branches about the ground, hoping to add like a crackling effect?
Yes, for overnight, yes.
Gotcha. Roll a survival. So you take some time to gather some of these branches, running around the camp at large and the wagon. You can get these kind of set about and have a little alarm system set for yourselves.
Yes, I think Candor will just spend the time kind of, similarly just kind of like, cleaning off, like, spending some time like, seeing to clean his daggers and blades, even though they probably look like essentially spotless, but he's like, very nitpicky about it and um, just kind of doing that and, eating a bit, but otherwise just kind of relaxing.
So if everyone is all set to put in for the evening, can I have a watch order from you? You all have 3 watches, 4 through the evening. So you basically have to decide when you are watching and which watch is going unwatched?
And I can take first watch.
When will Kandar and Flynn be going unwatched?
So Cander's he'll actually offer, like, if Flynn wants to take the second watch, he can try and essentially take like the last two watches, maybe, and then he'll say like I can try, I'll try and just you know catch a bit of sleep on the wagon tomorrow morning. But after what happened last night, perhaps we shouldn't should have somebody try to stay up. I don't mind if it's me.
Sure, I guess, if you're sure. I can take second watch.
If that sounds like the plan, let's go for a perception check from Einar. Initial part of the evening is going to be pretty calm. There's definitely a lot of kind of noise coming from the brush all around you all, where the grass is kind of waving and kind of like shifting against itself. It almost makes the sound of some fabrics as people are kind of like walking in a march where you have their legs crossing at the same time. It makes that kind of same like swooshing sound in the grass itself, and it keeps you a little bit more present in the moment. Perhaps just the occasion of the night before has you a little bit more kind of focused on sort of the dangers of being out here on the high road. But overall, you kind of watch and you eventually see the moon kind of passing through about this hour going by. Let me get another perception check from you.
So it's for a minor, yes.
Yep, indeed. At some point during this watch, you're going to start to actually hear a little bit of movement off to the west of you. Um, your initial thought is going to kind of give you signs of one, maybe two creatures kind of moving together, maybe about 50 or so feet away from the camp. What kind of thought do you have as you're hearing at least a little precursor sign of walking and movement off to the west of you?
I shall perhaps nudge Flynn to wake him up, and perhaps just ready my short sword. I'll ask Flynn, if I can wake Flynn up, to ask him, do you hear anything? What do you think?
Gotcha. Roll a perception for me, Flynn.
Is it my watch already?
Can you roll a perception, please, from Flynn?
Oh, sorry.
And again, if it shows up as a single, please roll twice. Excellent. So as you kind of focus your attention forward, trying to listen, there's not much in the air. The sound of the reeds in the grass, you hear the little bit of like the kind of metal on leather as Einar draws their sword, but there's definitely a stillness. Einar may not be the type of person that you doubt. You may perhaps doubt. If you look to Einar as somebody who's trustworthy and you believe when they are worried, you have a pretty solid sign that whatever is out there is intelligent enough to recognize what Einar is doing. If you have kind of doubts as to what and who Einar is and kind of what they represent, you might just kind of look towards them with this thought of, it's the darkness of night. You're just being paranoid. Just relax. So those are kind of like the two big ways that you might be interpreting this. But as far as you being woken up, doesn't sound especially like anything is nearby.
Well, I don't think I have any reason to doubt him after last night. Um,
I just have a small idea. I'm not, if I'm able to do it, is to use perhaps part of my torch, no, sorry, or tinderbox gear, and I have a longbow as well. Could I create some sort of flaming arrow to shoot into the towards the sound to see if it will illuminate anything over there?
You can certainly try. Here's one thing that I am going to remind people about what a flaming arrow is. That is a myth. Flaming arrows do not really work. Magic can create flaming arrows, but you have to use the magic. As far as lighting like pitch at the tip of an arrow works, arrows fly extremely fast and it doesn't really burn well. So that is definitely what I would say tends to be like a Hollywood version of a flaming arrow versus something that actually functions along those lines. But you can certainly try.
I will. I completely understand what you're saying and the physics behind it, so I will scrap that idea.
I'm not sure if there's historical precedent for people carrying like short bows to actually try to light things with flaming arrows. But I feel like one of the things that you would have ended up doing if you really want flaming arrows is actually creating a weaker bow that sends the actual arrow at a much lesser velocity and much lesser distance. But as far as things go, about like throwing fire at this point, I think on some level you would recognize that you guys are in early summertime. Like this is the first month of kind of summer and springtime. You're in a grassland, so throwing fire isn't necessarily a great idea, but this is when things are kind of their moistest. So it is one of those things where at very least you still have the possibility of like grabbing a torch and lighting that, and then you can throw it by hand. But in general, like if you try to shoot fire from your bow without using magic, it's going to be pretty rare that anything more than like a spark comes from it. And part of that is because I believe rangers actually have access to a flaming arrow spell.
Okay, I will take my torch, light it, and perhaps throw it in the direction of the noise.
Gotcha. Let me get a dexterity check here. Do you have athletics? So you. No, no, my bad. I was just saying, do you have athletics as in do you have proficiency? It looks like no. So as you kind of light the torch and you give it a toss towards where you feel you heard the last sound, the torch is going to fly out you are going to hear I think kind of a growl of a think it's going to come off kind of as like the growl and like whinnying of a canine of sorts, as there's kind of like this dead thump of the torch hitting a body, the kind of smell of singed hair as it burns this creature as well. You'll hear kind of like the whining and like whinnying of it, and then sort of like a growl moment as this creature kind of moves away. But you do indeed confirm that this creature is there. You're not imagining it. Probably about 15 or 20 feet off from your camp where you hit it, and it's probably moving a little bit more towards the south, and you can pick up a little hint, at very least, of kind of where it moves off to before it's just too much loss of information, and eventually it's back to this idea of I know it's roughly in this spot, but you kind of lose it into the grass again.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that we've seen that off for now then. I think we should just keep alert to listen out for any return of it.
So if you continue back to your watch, keeping a close eye on where you expect that creature to be, seems like the torch was enough to keep it off. Or perhaps it's patient enough that it's still just kind of sat where it is, but you don't feel any other signs. Eventually, looking up to the moon, you feel like you've got a pretty solid understanding that it's passed on far enough into Flynn's watch that you can wake up Flynn and uh, both pass the torch and pass the torch.
Yep, super. So I'll wake up Flynn and just say sort of, hey friend, just keep your eye out for what we heard earlier. Have a good watch.
All right.
So when you are good and set, can you roll some perceptions for me?
Sorry, can I, at the start of my watch, can I take the 10 minutes to don my armor?
Yeah, in particular, it is assumed if you are awake, you should tell me that you are not wearing your armor.
Okay.
That is part of why, like, I think you're realistically the one character who your watch matters the most, because I think Einar and Kandor can sleep in their armor.
Yeah. All right, perception.
But yeah, there's a lot of things where, um, until you tell me otherwise, it is pretty much always assumed that you guys are effectively in armor once you are kind of conscious. So the first 10 minutes of your watch is pretty much always going to be you dressing your armor. Yeah, so this first hour is going to go by pretty seamlessly. A lot of the sounds of the road, a lot of the quiet of the night. You try to focus on that area and kind of just lose a lot of interest of it, as nothing seems to be giving you any sort of a clue that there is a presence to really worry about. But you continue on and kind of watch from time to time as you see. I think we're on a waning crescent of the actual moon. But as you progress forward, time allots by, and let's go for another perception from you, Flynn. So, at some point during this watch, you are actually going to start to pick up the sounds of things kind of happening around your camp. You start to hear kind of the cracking of branches and kind of like this rustling of the weeds and grass around you, very close to the camp itself. What are your initial thoughts as you start to hear this?
I guess my thought would be to wake up Einar and Candor just in case, or just give them.
Gotcha. Who are you going for first? What are your thoughts? Like, you can wake up one person, you can yell out for them to wake up. What are you actually doing?
I'm gonna keep an eye out from looking around and sort of gently shake Einar awake, and then if nothing happens, gonna well, keep still looking around, slowly move over and wake up Candor.
Gotcha. Roll a perception for me as you kind of make your way towards Einar, and let me get a perception from Einar as well. So, Einar, you will kind of feel this gentle kind of rocking at your shoulder to kind of get at your attention, and see as Flynn is kind of like looking over yourself towards kind of like the western end of this camp. As you're kind of looking off into the distance, Flynn, you don't see anything at present, and it kind of just looks like the darkness of night. You kind of see the same cots of trees that are around this little bit of water, and as you're kind of looking for anything, kind of feel like one of the trees is waving in the wind, but there's not actually like a gust of wind at that moment, and you kind of hear this like crackling and like cringing of the trees.
Um, is that just what I heard, like the wind? Or...
No, my point was is there is not wind. The
Oh,
tree is blowing in the wind when you don't feel wind on your skin.
okay. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna move over and wake up Candor as well. And I guess I'll say something's not right here.
I'll agree with you on that. That I think we've got company of sorts, but I'm not sure what it is.
So, Candor, as they start to rustle you to consciousness, uh, what are you kind of thinking as this kind of initial moment passes?
Yeah, so Candor was probably lightly snoring, and he'll kind of come to and kind of looking up and a bit groggy, and kind of similarly to like what Flint is like, time for my watch already. But then he'll kind of, after a moment, kind of see maybe like the look of, there seems to be like a look of concern on their faces. So he'll sit up and become a little more alert at that point, and kind of looking to them both. What's going on?
Can Einar shout at this point, who goes there? And ready his crossbow.
Roll a persuasion. So, all of you are going to hear a very low voice. It sounds almost like the wind. And you can't quite make out any language to it, but it feels smooth and flowing. And this moves into your ears, almost like a lullaby, relaxing. I know you can make out hints of Elvish, but you can't quite feel. Does this creature use Elvish? Or did Elvish come from a creature like this? But the voice is soothing. The voice seems friendly, but the voice doesn't seem to be coming from a creature you can see.
I think I do understand Elvish.
No, my point is that you recognize parts of it from it being Elvish.
Fine. Yeah.
You can't make out whether Elvish came from this language or whether this language came from Elvish.
I see. I understand.
My point is that you don't understand anything of what it's saying other than it sounds a little bit like Elvish.
So, what do we think, chaps? Are we in danger here?
Doesn't sound particularly threatening. Rather nice, actually. Not that I understand any of the words.
So looking around, you still can't see anything, just noises and
That's correct. At present, you guys are just kind of looking back towards the trees and towards this like little area where the pond is, basically inside of your camp.
I retrieve my torch and light it and walk up to where the voice is coming from.
Gotcha. So you can walk a little bit closer to the water's edge.
Yes, I will do that.
Make a perception check. Looking around, see signs of a little bit of like animal traffic kind of moving through this area. Perhaps the creature that you saw on your watch earlier. Otherwise, everything seems to kind of check out. There doesn't seem to be anything that's come into this area that's disturbed anything around here and left. It all just seems kind of normal.
so voice from nowhere and the trees moving without wind. Perhaps we should move camp. Maybe we've disturbed something.
I blame Candace Nor.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Sorry, I blame your snoring for disturbing or awakening wherever's around here. I'm making Einar's making a small joke.
Okay, so no, yeah, no, you just cut off. Yeah, Candor will kind of look slightly apologetic, give a little shrug, and then kind of looking back towards. He probably would have like hesitated, but then maybe followed a little bit behind Einar. And I think, he's just gonna kind of eventually he's gonna just call out like, "You don't happen to speak common, uh, whoever you are, in common." I'm just out towards in the direction of where he thought the voice was coming from.
I think you're going to hear as this voice almost stumbling over itself kind of starts to bring like a feeling of like a rock that's slowly rolling down a mountain over a few years' time. And this long passage of time and this feeling of this voice just slowly going on, where you can't tell whether it's been speaking for a second, 5 minutes, if you've been staring off into the darkness for an hour. It has a very weird, magical feel to how this voice just sinks into your ears. And over a few moments, you're going to kind of hear as these feelings start to kind of coalesce into a little bit more solid thoughts before, after a few moments, it does indeed feel like the voice is starting to phrase things closer to common, but it's not speaking how you all would speak. They're much more kind of like poetic thoughts of maybe like your language is quick and fast to lose its importance. There's much to be said that should not be so lightly left to inaccuracies. And I can certainly find your thoughts in my head. Are you able to figure out the importance of the words that flow from my?
So Candor is like kind of, "I'll uh, do my best." Looking towards Flynn and Einar.
I will call out. What are you?
I think with those two thoughts that you guys kind of throw out there, there's going to be kind of an eerie silence that kind of comes back. You have a sense of this creature is in your immediate presence. You've heard kind of this first, like almost river like flow of what seemed like an elvish kind of voice. And then you've heard another voice that starts to turn into common that you can actually understand, that feels almost like a rock slowly moving down a mountain. But there's going to be a silence between those two thoughts.
Still can't see anything?
Nope. Nothing that gives you any like thought of what you are looking at or what you are talking to.
Well,
Can I call out again?
I don't.
What are you?
It's some sort of spirit. I don't want to mess with it. Perhaps we should just leave. Maybe this is its territory or something.
I'm just thinking it's pitch black. We're not going to be able to see where we're going. Do you take the chance just to carry on the night and hope that this isn't a creature that's going to harm us?
Guardian and protector. Herder and shepherd. I am the earth. I am the sky. And there's just a big groan from the trees kind of around you. And you see as they all kind of like shake and almost shiver. And you kind of have this eerie kind of sense of like late fall and kind of the first cold, first like motion of winter as these trees all kind of shake around you and around your camp. Ah, the growth of life and the earth.
Are you a spirit? Do you want us to leave?
Just hear silence for a while. You guys just kind of sit staring off into nothingness.
I hope our uh, camp didn't disturb you. Were you trying to get our attention? Thinking, when I guess if Flynn, I think it was Flynn who noticed or who heard the, um, like maybe saw the swaying branches. He's just thinking maybe it wanted to speak with us or.
You are wicked action. Your thoughts are fast and without worry. Much has been lost to your kind, but many of yours close and far. Your danger is yours to bring. And you're just going to kind of see as one of these creatures in particular then starts to kind of shake as like the tree is like shaking and the branches kind of are moving a little bit, and you just hear like the same kind of like achy growth of like the cracking and splitting of tree branches, the way like fresh wood, like nice dry burning wood, kind of snaps. Like there's almost like this kind of snapping sound coming from this, these limbs of these trees or of this tree as it's kind of moving a little bit, and it's just going to kind of slowly return to its like full upright state, lifting its branches high. Defend, run, shepherd.
Well, we don't want to bring any danger. We mean no harm.
I was going to sense that there's no danger, and he's going to get his. He'll just say, "Well, I'm back off to sleep." Um, I don't think there's any danger here.
So if Einar returns to sleep, we have a little bit more of Flynn's watch, and we've got Candor on watch. What are your current thoughts, Flynn? Are you satisfied? Is Candor returning to sleep as well?
I mean, Candor's definitely curious about this encounter with these creatures. But similar to Einar, like it doesn't seem like they're antagonistic. You might kind of like glancing towards Flynn, like uh, just remind me. Probably shouldn't any firewood hereabouts. Um, like half jokingly, and then he'll kind of turn back towards the trees. Well, kind of at a loss. Well, it was nice to make your acquaintance. If there is anything I can do for you, my name is Candor, by the way. And I think he'll kind of like pause at that, and then like maybe give it a few moments, and um, if there's like I guess like if there's no response coming, he would then at that point move to essentially try and get back to sleep at least for a little bit until his watch comes up.
Gotcha. So yeah, I think you'll kind of have this moment where you recognize that there is a certain level of speak to it and give it some time that it might return some sort of information. And as the silence kind of continues on, there's the point where you do kind of recognize perhaps it's still thinking, perhaps it's not going to respond, but you can kind of turn around and return to your bedroll and lay down for the evening. And it's back to just Flynn on watch right now. Uh, oh wait, are we on Einar now? Flynn was first. No, it's Flynn was
Flynn-
second.
Yeah, second.
Yeah. So, and I think that was finishing up Flynn's second watch. Is there anything that you are doing before the end of your watch where you are going to get candor.
I suppose I'll just turn back to the tree and say, I don't know what you are, some sort of spirit, but or creature of nature, I'm not sure. But know that my patron is the Earth Mother Shantea. I would do you no harm. I will turn back, and I guess when my watch is over, I'll wake up Candor.
Roll a religion.
Unfortunately, I'm not very good at that, but
So I don't think it's a stretch for you to understand that most of the gods have avatars and lesser beings that partake in their being, despite not necessarily being the gods. Many of the gods don't interact in the world how they once did. And it's not hard for you to figure out that it is entirely possible that this creature is definitely closely related to Shantia. You haven't seen it with what little description you have, though. There's a certain reason to kind of rest assured, almost in the grasp of Shantia in this kind of initial interaction. But eventually, kind of calming yourself and finding the time flies by where doesn't seem to be anything else happening, although occasionally you do kind of feel feel the wind die off, and you hear the groaning of the trees. There's still a certain sense that maybe whatever this is still happening in this part of your camp, but perhaps it's not that much of a worry, and you can eventually start to wind down, and we will go to the first watch from Candor.
All right, so Candor will. I guess he'll if the torch is still if Nick or if Flynn still has the torch, he would kind of take that with him. Otherwise, he would light up. He's got a lantern with him for a little bit of light as he's keeping watch.
Yeah, so like any given torch is an hour of light if you were burning a torch. The lantern, I believe, is filled with oil, and I think it is 1 quart per hour, or it might be like 5 hours per quart. I think it says that on the actual lantern how much it consumes.
Yeah, it looks like 1 flask of oil is good for 6 hours.
Bam. Yep. So on some level, it's just kind of keep track of roughly how much oil you've burned from it. So if you're about to have that lamp burning for these next 4 hours, you're basically at 2 hours remaining before you need to purchase oil. But as far as things go on that first watch, if you are just kind of relaxed here, keeping watch, there doesn't seem to be much going on. Perhaps you're almost relaxing into the sound of the moving nature about you, and maybe your mind is kind of drawn towards that relaxing voice that you heard and trying to see if nature around you is telling a story, and your imagination's going to start to listen to this story. You can't quite tell whether it's the magic of a creature like this that's speaking to you, or whether it's simply allowing yourself to lose enough focus. But you definitely have something between like a daydream and kind of like a movie playing before you. And it's definitely distracting candor, but it's a very calming moment of time that's kind of passing before you. But as far as that hour passing by, it will be uneventful. And let me get another perception from you. And I think there you'll find yourself even deeper lulled into this kind of like beautiful evening and kind of the passing of this time around you, this sensation that the nature itself is kind of like very cared for and very caring. And there's something protective about what is happening here. But your next hour, even further, kind of like draws you into this very relaxed kind of I'm awake, I'm paying attention, but I'm really looking for something catastrophic. Otherwise, I'm almost like lost to the world. But do another perception for me.
All right, and I think at this point he'll be exhausted, so it should be a disadvantage.
Yeah. So as you kind of start to feel this nature around you really set in and like a heavy weight kind of draws you almost into sleep. You kind of start to recognize that perhaps this isn't the time to be so relaxed and that the danger is real in this place, even if it feels so comforting that you almost kind of slap yourself into staying a little bit more steady and a little bit more in the moment and trying to ignore this almost song that's playing of the wind and the grass blowing and the trees kind of not croaking, creaking in the wind. Yes, the ever-present croaking tree. And as you kind of progress forward, you're starting to see the first signs of dawn's light off deep to the west and maybe coming through kind of like the northern. There's almost an alley of mountains that kind of follow like the valley that the Tribor Trail is almost to directly to the east of you at this point here. I might have said west for the sun rising, but it's coming from the east. But as you progress there, let's get another watch from you in this final hour of the night.
Yeah, he's definitely like he's taking some water, splashing on his face, to like doing what he can to kind of keep alert.
And yeah, as you're trying to start to keep yourself active and trying to keep everybody like the concern for your friends, the concern for your job at hand in mind, you're doing a solid job keeping yourself attentive, starting to focus on the ever present dawn that's getting closer and closer from when you see the first kind of line of blue that's just a vague horizon off to the east to when you start to see the first shimmer of the light of dawn coming over the actual horizon to your east. You feel a little bit of a satisfaction having gotten through this night. Starting to see signs of the others are starting to move with the sun starting to touch them in their beds. But for all intents and purposes, you all can get another long rest on this night here. Candor, you obviously are not getting a long rest from this here. But when you all are prepared, you can push on for the day here. I think we are going to end pretty soon here, but as you actually progress forward, you all are going to be traveling along the high road for about half or so of this day. You know to expect the trail to turn off and head towards Tribor, or most of the traffic to continue to head south towards Leyland. While you all are looking for that, what sort of thoughts are passing from this morning between waking up and heading onto the road for this first part of the day?
I'm quite interested in seeing what where the voice was coming from last night. Whether we can actually see anything now of what creature might have been there.
Go ahead and roll an investigation. As you kind of look around your camp and looking around for the footprints and anything that kind of would have come up to this water in this area of the camp, you don't see any signs. You don't see signs of the canine or the creature that you saw on your watch. You don't see signs of your own group the night before while you were collecting the wood to kind of throw around the actual campsites. This area looks fresh, pristine, and natural.
I'm just going to comment that maybe one night we'll get a good night's sleep, but what an unusual and remarkable night that was.
Indeed. Be curious whether anyone else around here is perhaps someone more familiar with the area could tell us. Perhaps there's something special about this place. But agreed, rather unusual night. Yeah, but I think Candor will otherwise he'll take some time, kind of he'll like maybe assuming like the water like in the pond seems clean enough, he'll use it to like refill his water skin, probably use some of it to like, clean his face and stuff, very meticulous about his appearance um and then kind of after he's done with that, kind of move back towards the others. Still looks pretty looks a little haggard after last night. Didn't get a lot of sleep, but kind of putting on a brave face.
Roll where the game's not really set up for this. Roll a survival for me. So, looking around the water, it looks fresh enough. You, again, still don't see any actual signs of any creatures like coming up to it and drinking from it. No creatures that seem to be defecating in it. No creatures that seem to have died in this water. As far as things go, this looks like fresh enough water, and yeah, it seems like a good place to kind of fill up your water at this point, and you certainly can. Um, and kind of rest assured that it's some of the cleaner water that you'll gain access to. Um, I don't think this game has a proper provision for dealing with how dirty water can be. Uh, but if you all are prepared to head off for the day, let me get a animal handling from, assuming Flynn or Einar is driving, the one of you two roll an animal handling for us.
Since we
Ha-
both since we both have animal handling, can one of us assist to give the other advantage?
For what it is worth, I will often give access to things like that. As far as this goes, and actually one person is holding the reins of these animals, I'm doing a single check because what it comes down to is simply seeing how are the animals reacting to you driving them.
Okay.
I'm happy for Flynn to go first.
All right. Is this just a straight roll?
Yep, just roll an animal handling. All right, at some point, though, you had to roll twice on. If you can leave it always on, always roll twice, that is preferable.
Oh, okay. I just didn't know if I had I've been turning it on when I assume I have disadvantage, but
Well, my point of why I want it always on there is because sometimes I will tell you you have disadvantage. Sometimes somebody will roll as I am trying to say it. So if you always have it on there, that is the desired effect.
okay.
Especially for like at nighttime, you almost always have disadvantage at nighttime. The double roll almost always is effective, like on certain things you're doing at night. But yeah, riding forward with the animals, your initial day here is going to go much smoother. As far as they seem to be acting, they're not kind of struggling against each other and seem to be working much better to each other. As far as things go, the first half of this day is going to progress pretty seamlessly before eventually you all are going to come to a point where you see the first building that you have seen in quite some time. Most of this structure is kind of a stone lower level, about like 2/3 of the ground level is stone, and you can see where they are currently building with fresh lumber, a kind of second story on top of it. But you kind of come up to this roadside structure, and beside it is a point where you can at least see the grassland is like trampled. It's not the same level of a road as the high road, but you guys are seeing signs of a road that turns off to the east and heads away from the high road. You all have this building ahead of you. You have the road to what is effectively your left. What sort of thoughts do you all have while around middle of the day you come to this first bastion of society?
I guess Kander, since he's traveled some of this area before, he might try and remember. Like, has he heard about some, you know, um, like place here at the crossroads or?
Roll a history check. So you placed yourself out of Leyland. I think at some point we had you also as far south as Baldur's Gate. Is that
Yeah, so
correct?
essentially like he was born in Leylon and then like his family is moved, like he was young, so he wouldn't remember a lot of it, but from like essentially Leylon down south, like stopping in Waterdeep, then down to Baldur's Gate, and then he's kind of
Gotcha. So it's probably not a stretch to say one or both of your parents were like affiliated with like the Lord's Alliance or some such. At present, you've kind of placed yourself in all of the big cities where Lord's Alliance would come to. For what it is worth, assuming you have kind of like a military brat, kind of like you remember enough about this kind of area that there were ruins here. Perhaps it's been a while since you've taken this trip from like Leyland is also vaguely in ruins at this time. It's roughly settled right now. It's never really gone without having a settlement there, but it is very much like a settlement and not a city. You would have a vague understanding of some of these buildings that exist about at this crossroad of the Tribord Trail. So I think that's enough to tell that you are indeed at the Tribor. And for what it is worth, that at more um, settled, peaceful times, this area has existed as a way station between Neverwinter and Leyland, as well as Waterdeep. But in the long run, this is still wilderness here.
Yeah, so Kendra kind of relay that to the others, and um, or are we about midday at this point, or how long have you been traveling this third day?
Yeah, that's looking at vaguely midday.
So he'll like, kind of like look to the others, like seems about lunchtime. I guess perhaps we should uh, take a look inside. Decent enough time to take a bit of a breather from the road.
Yep. Use the brick.
So if you all decide to come on in, you have the front entrance that kind of like looks between these main kind of trails. The initial trail that leads off to the east is actually going to show you much of what is kind of the most common traffic of this location is essentially into kind of the outside stables of this area. But you can kind of like see around that kind of edge and note that they do indeed have like a barn that's kind of like a gated in back of this building. Some of the actual stone structure continues on, so you can see at some point this outer area was a stone wall. Much of it has collapsed along the actual uh, wall of this structure, collapsing in whatever destroyed it in the past. When you come up to this point, you all can uh, take your horses into the actual stable area and stable your horses, or you can do something like staying outside and sending someone in to get food. But basically, it's this idea: what are you going to do with the horses as you all prepare for lunch? This is a place where it kind of very clearly has a stable to take care of them.
Yeah, Kendra will offer to maybe go in, try and look around for like maybe a stable boy and see, stable hand to see if maybe they can, you know, um, order the oxen or the horses.
Gotcha. So if you kind of look around to that edge, you can already hear the hammering of steel against steel, and there does seem to be a small structure along like the back side of this building where somebody is indeed hammering away at what you can assume very quickly is essentially blacksmithing. So you can kind of head towards that southeastern door. There's probably two horses being stabled in this area that you pass by. But making your way towards the south, you kind of see an open door where you're going to see a woman working at the forge in the south of this building. And this is going to be an actual room that is like actually walled in and has a ceiling. It's just a kind of grass ceiling on top of it. But when you start to walk into the stable area inside of what would have been walled in, it's going to be pretty quick that you actually see her arm kind of coming up high as she's bringing the hammer high. and striking down into the anvil. And you get pretty close before you feel like there's any reason to speak, because this person is just a din of loud noises as these hammer strikes are brought down.
Yeah, I think he would not want to like interrupt. He'd kind of just like watching her at work and trying to pick out like maybe if she moves to take a break, or I mean he doesn't want to wait like too long, but he'll like give it a like a couple minutes and see if he can try to, or maybe even like almost like if she doesn't seem about to stop, maybe like try to time it as she's as she's like raises the hammer like the highest point above her head before she brings it back down, and try to like kind of interject at that point.
Gotcha. Roll a perception check here. So you can't quite make out what she's working on. It seems to be a quicker process. She has a tong holding on to what seems like a large chunk of metal. She seems to kind of like draw it out into a point. So maybe she's making like a pickaxe or something. And every few moments or so, every minute or so, she's probably coming to a point where you like assess in like 5 minutes, like, this is where I'm going to jump in. So after a few moments, you watch, and it seems like whatever's going on, it seems to kind of fail or whatever, and she starts over, and this is your opportunity to jump in. But in a little lull in her work, you say,
Greetings, miss, and he'll give like a very friendly, big grin. I Sorry to interrupt, but my companions and I hoping we might be able to stable our steeds for a bit.
so she is going to strike down into the anvil, like right as you say greetings. The piece of metal that is being held by the tongs is going to shoot out into the fire and back into the forge. And she's going to take a quick moment to grab it out of there as she kind of looks back at you. Oh, Lordy, you scared the shit out of me. Um, the stable horses. Yes. Give me one moment, and she's going to pull a little bit of other steel that's kind of around the edges of this forage area out of the actual heat, and kind of set them a little bit closer to the edges, away from the kind of like cherry of the forge, as she looks back to you, assuming the others are towards the end of it, and she sees that there are two horses to be stabled. She'll kind of look towards you all and, for the day, or
So Candace can actually at that point kind of that's a good question, and he'll turn back and kind of maybe like shout towards depending on how far away Flynn and Einar are at
I
this point.
think they would be like 40 or so feet.
Okay, so like call back and kind of, or maybe like kind of like gesture them closer, and then kind of like as or maybe like as he's gesturing, it's like, how long are we planning to stay? Um,
It's only about midday, right?
Yep, you guys are looking at about midday, about high noon at this point.
Uh, Not too long. We still got the rest of the still got lots of sunlight left to get back on the road.
I mean, I'm happy to take a break, have some lunch, um, see what's happening in this area. But I do want to travel this afternoon as well.
So she'll kind of look back to you, and she'll just say, it'll be 2 copper for the two horses. I'll uh, clean them up, bring them a little bit of hay for food, and we'll give them some water. And when you're finished with your break, we can put them back in their bridles, and you'll be on your way.
Much appreciated. And so I know we start with like what 10 or 15 gold. Can we assume that can be in denominations of different coins?
Yeah, on some level, I would definitely not carry just 10 gold on you. If I ever pick your pocket and you have 10 gold pieces on you, you're going to have no gold pieces on you. If you have to find your own balance of how you keep coin, because I think it's 16 coins are a pound of weight. They're all 1 ounce coins. And that does go into what your character can carry. So there is certainly a sense of more coins you have, the less you can carry. But there is also a sense of, especially people who are living in Neverwinter, you should probably have multiple coin purses on you. Some that you carry for spending money, some that you bring out for when you're buying something big ticket. So you should kind of have things stowed in different places. Um, Granted, at lower levels, you don't really have the bags for that, but at some point, you guys will notice that you have multiple bags, and I think each bag can actually be noted with how many coins it has in it, and then D&D Beyond will keep track of your total coins. But there is definitely a certain sense of when you're in most towns, there's a certain amount of you can spend gold pieces and get change. But there are definitely certain people, and right now, again, you guys are still pretty much in the wilderness. To pull out a gold piece now might be a mistake. But it doesn't mean that you guys don't have gold pieces. But you do, on some level, want to determine, like, if I have 10 gold total, do I have 100 silver pieces? Do I have 1,000 copper pieces? And decide, like, what you're actually carrying. Um, I usually try to say break up your denominations, but at the same time, you want it to be realistic. Like, I think it's good to have probably 100 or so copper, which is a gold. And it's probably good to have maybe 20 or 30 silver, which is 2 to 3 gold, and then the rest in gold. Um, that's kind of spending money style of thing. Be quick to pull out your copper purse and almost never pull out your gold purse, kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah. So so Candor will he'll pull out the two copper and hand them over with another kind of friendly smile and another much appreciated. And then he'll turn back towards Flynn and Einar. Let's let's grab some lunch.
So she is going to effectively bring the horses in. She'll kind of take their bridle from you, bring the horses into this area, and kind of set the wagon to the side, bring the horses into 2 of those stalls. While she's kind of doing that, she will point off to you all that there is that entrance kind of beneath the stairs. So you can walk essentially inside of this and directly to the left, to the west, to enter into the door. And she'll just kind of say to you, um, effectively something to the realm of head on, like she'll kind of point you towards that door. If you head on inside, you should see Martisha at one of the tables, and she'll be able to take care of you. Otherwise, if she's not right there, Bax is the bartender, but during the day he doesn't tend to have work where he'll be present. But when you arrive, just let them know I've got your horses. Basically just kind of welcome you inside here. And I think we will actually end things here with you all basically walking into this tavern, and we'll pick up there next week as the start of our session. You can basically walk around and see that this is more or less a kind of open air tavern at this point. There's like flooring being built up above you all, but there is essentially only this first layer. It is a dirt kind of floor, hay scattered around. There are a lot of like two-person tables that are like large wine barrels set up on end. Some of them have like a squared off tabletop that seems to just be kind of sitting on top. Many of the actual long tables look like they have kind of doors or like sides of wooden structures just kind of thrown on top of these barrels. Very quick feel of this place is this is a place that is managing to be kind of a pub or a tavern, but at present is little more than a drinking hole. And I think you will see one woman who is sitting in like one of the front. I think she would be sitting just kind of in front of the bar, kind of looking towards that front door. And she's about like mid 40s. First signs of like some graying hair, but otherwise has like a dark brown auburn hair. And she looks up pretty quickly from this little notebook, and she's going to, "Welcome to the Wayside Inn, my friends. My name's Marticia Weindocker, and I'll be taking care of you today."